So, Max, how have things been for you? Obviously, SimRacing's changed quite a lot over the last couple of years. But yeah, I think we've raced against each other for what, like, how long has that been now? Like 8 years or something like that. We've raced against each
Forever.
other. Yeah, it's been a
Yeah,
long time.
since I
So
remember, basically.
yeah, I remember at the start I was doing the F1 World Championship and you were off doing the GT3 stuff, and we sort of saw your name pop up, and we were like, none of us had really heard of you before, and you were winning all these GT3 races, and your I rating was climbing really quickly, and none of us knew kind of who you were, and we were sort of on separate paths. And then in like, I think 2019 probably, or 2018 actually, in that GT World Championship series,
Yeah.
we would have first, I guess, raced against each other.
Yeah, it's been a long ride so far. I mean, we've shared the stage for a decade now, basically almost. Back then, if for me, it was everything went super quick. I was still driving with a couple of people that I just knew from racing online in Codemasters, and then they switched like 2 years after. I think I was driving in 2012 and 2013 on the Codemaster games, and then they started switching to iRacing, and I never had a PC in my life before. I was always a console driver, which is a shame because I wish I would have known that before, that the PC is just so much better. And then, came onto iRacing 2 years after on my laptop, basically, driving with the worst possible hardware, and like a Logitech G27. So it was really fun back then because for me everything was new. It was so exciting to go on iRacing. Everything felt so amazing, so natural, so completely different to what I was used to before. And then quickly started to drive competitively as well. And that's where in 2016, I think it was, the first GT3 World Championship was announced. So we tried to qualify for that. I was awful back then still, because that was the first time I was actually racing proper people, pro level people, because they didn't show up that much in the official races that I did back then. And that's how I got into it. And but lots of things have changed over the years, especially when you think about iRacing back then and iRacing nowadays. It's 180 degrees turnaround, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting as well because you and I literally started in the same year, probably around the same point. I think like 2016 for me was when I decided I want to go and try and do the pro qualification series, and then got in and started at the start of 2017. And as you say, like, a lot of things have changed. And back then, I think it was so like simplistic. Back then, a lot of people refer to it as like the golden era, when it was like a $10,000 prize pool. If you came top three, you got a bit of cash. Everyone else, you were getting iRacing credits, and everyone was working their full-time jobs and rocking up on the sim at the weekend in their spare time and racing and stuff. And I've got a lot of fond memories back then. I don't know about yourself, but like, it's great obviously that we can do this as a career now. But I think back then it was, I don't really know what it is. If it's like the pressure sort of takes the fun out of it a little bit. As soon as you make something your job, naturally it loses a bit of fun. But I don't know what you view about that. But for me, it was just so
Yeah,
enjoyable back then.
it is. Yeah, it's true. I agree. I think it's a combination of things. As you say, like the pressure that you nowadays you have to be at the top to be considered for a team and to get some salary out of it. Back in the day, it was just driving mainly for fun as a hobby on the side. I mean, when I started, I was starting my studies basically. I was just finishing my school and went into university after, and that's where I started with sim racing, or like iRacing in general. So it was just like a side hustle in these terms, which made it a lot more enjoyable than in the years after, where you suddenly do this as your job basically, and you have to deliver the results. And when you see this evolution from it's a hobby, and you still want to compete and you want to be the best, but nowadays when you compete, it's about everybody else is on the same page as you. They have to have the best result for themselves. And when you have this competition where a lot of people join and want to have something from the cake, then you get into things that are not just about driving anymore, but also about everything else around it. Trying to find every single exploit there is, trying to find any advantage that you can have that is not just on the track, but also maybe in some data that you can see, or maybe in, you know, driving together as a team, although maybe it's not a team championship, and trying to, you know, get the points out of it like this and the money out of it like that. So yeah, but I think it's also the same for any other esport type of thing, where the moment you go from just normal playing, let's say Counter-Strike or Dota or whatever, to esports, then everything just completely changes, because now you have to work together with a team. You have to do some things that you maybe don't want to do or wouldn't have done before. And when you have this combination of things, it starts to be a bit more like a real job, actually.
It's interesting that you touch on the exploits, because that was something I was going to get onto, but I guess we'll fire into that now. Like, I don't know about yourself at how many exploits you've figured out or utilized over the years, but for us there was definitely quite a few. And I remember like we were still working our day jobs. This is in, I think it was, I don't know if we had it in 2017, but do you remember the whole SDK scandal, like the 11265 meme and all that stuff?
Not really. Like, I was not so deep into it back then, so maybe you can talk a bit more about it, because
Yeah.
it's interesting to me to hear as well. I think I mean, I've heard it, but I'm not too deep into it. Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially like what we had done was in the MP430 you had 14 ERS settings that you
Yeah.
could use, right? And people were just overriding it completely with the overtake button and doing it that way, right? So iRacing eventually got fed up with this, of people driving around holding buttons. So they reduced the efficiency of ERS mode 1, which was full deploy. So the battery would drain super quickly, and in turn people couldn't use it for long. So what we discovered was we created a piece of software where you held a button down and it scrolled from 14 up to 1, and then it flicked back to 2. And then it sat at 2 for as long as you held the button. So it only went to 1 for about half a second or so, and then it would flick back. So you would see it on the dash scrolling through. So we had to cover dashes if we were streaming or recording or anything like that. But if you were just spectating us, you couldn't see it. So
Yeah.
we had way more ERS charge than pretty much any other team, and we were using this for a while. We sent the software to iRacing and showed them how it worked. They gave us the go ahead before we started using it and everything. Like, we did everything by the book, but obviously playing within the grey area that's allowed. And essentially that went on for a while. Like, we had like launch control for the start, so you could like tune the RPMs and stuff. We ended up using third gear for standing starts, and people were getting a bit confused about that. And then other people were pointing out that the ERS light on the back wasn't flashing and stuff like that. You know, we started getting found out. And then I think it was Simon Povey had left Apex, and he like exposed the full thing on the forums. And then all of a sudden we had like the whole community at the time coming after us, people accusing us of having traction control, ABS, like everything, like you name it. And you know, that was kind of where the 11265 joke came from, because that was the starting RPM that we used, and we were able to hold that.
Okay.
And I remember Interlagos. Obviously, Interlagos is a bit of a unique one, where it's a steep uphill on the starting grid, and you could tell who had decent like dual clutches and who didn't. I think the reason we actually did it is because Kroenke and De Jong and all that, they all had dual clutches on the wheels, right? And we didn't.
Yeah.
So we had to use software to try and compete. It didn't do anything differently ultimately to what they were doing. It was just, it gave us an outlet to have a dual clutch without needing to spend however much money it was. But Hutu and Ollie Pakala and Alexei Usiakala, they all didn't have it. So Interlagos, I went from like 7th to 4th on the grid or something like that. I just jumped past all the red line cars. And,
I might have watched that actually. Yeah, now that you say it, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people weren't happy, and as I say, once Povey blew the lid off it, it grew arms and legs. We had people saying that we had like automated brake bias changing, and the ERS was mapped, you know, to work automatically and things like that. Which obviously, if we had done that, it wouldn't have been allowed. It had to be, I think, open loop is how iRacing described it. So you had to put an input in for it to actually perform an action. But that was like the first time we got involved with exploits and things like that. But I mean, over the years, like you'll probably know yourself, there's been so many setup exploits as well. I don't know if do you remember the Audi GT3 years ago with the negative 10.5 rear toe and
Oh yeah, I do remember
all
those.
that stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
I
how
do.
much you know about it, but I remember just hearing that someone done it at Interlagos, and it was a strange experience.
I was not so much into iRacing. I think when that was a thing, I remember driving it a couple of races, and but it's also something that didn't stay behind closed doors for that long, right? I think at some point just everybody knew it as well. Maybe there was even a post on the forums so that everybody just knew that you had to drive like super high negative toe in the rear. But yeah, ridiculous. Glad iRacing fixed it pretty quickly. I don't think it was there for too long, right?
Yeah, I think iRacing's way of fixing it is the good old band-aid fix, where they could investigate the tire model and figure out why negative toe was so effective, but now they just stopped us from being able to go below 0, and now on GT3s it's what, like 1.5 or something like that. So
Yeah.
and
As always, never really a fix, just a band-aid, as you say.
yeah, and I guess talking of band-aids, next up I assume we have to go to Bright Dragon, right? That's probably the next thing.
That's probably the biggest one now.
I don't know how it was for you, but
It's
like
ridiculous.
it was one of the darkest times, I think, in PESC in terms of testing. Like for me, I've always quite enjoyed like pushing the envelope and like looking for things that nobody else might think of. Like always trying to think outside the box for tire warm-up strats, setup stuff, you name it. But yeah, that round into Lagos was carnage, and ironically, that's where I actually got my first World Championship win was in that race. I got kind of lucky that I got out qualified by 11 Coanda cars because it gave me a free reverse pole. But
True.
I mean, what were your emotions in that Q session? Because that was like,
it was like, I think I was second or third from all the people that didn't break drag or something. So when I looked at the times, it was pretty close between like all of us, except for the Coanda guys, and I was like, there's no way. And my first initial thought was that they found a way to have a different weather for themselves in quali, because I do remember that 2 years prior or 3 years prior, we had exactly that bug that sometimes people were joining the servers, especially in the World Championship series, and it was just like 10 degrees cooler for them on the track surface. So my initial thought was that, okay, there's something majorly wrong. I didn't even think that there was something with the setup, because obviously there wasn't, as we figured out afterwards. It was literally just, ridiculous. The moment I crossed the line and I saw all of them being ahead of me, I think the thing I remember most was David Williams being in front of me in the quali, and I was like, "There's no way, it's impossible." Nothing against David, but I was like, "There's absolutely no way." And he was so far off P1 as well. It's like, okay, there's just something wrong. So yeah, I thought it's an exploit with the weather, not with the brake dragging. Only afterwards, when we checked the replays, we were like, "What the hell is that?" And then we quickly came to the conclusion that they found this stuff from the oval drivers that they had back in the day, and unfortunately, that stick with us for quite some time, right?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the Dave Williams thing, because I was going to bring that up as well. I was like, that was I mean, I love Dave to bits. Like, I've spoken to him quite a lot over the years. He's a great guy, one of the OGs. But when he out-qualified me, I was like, what in the fuck is going on? Because the lap I did genuinely felt really good. I think I was like 100th off Seb. Like, me, you, and Seb were all within like half a tenth or something. We were right up at the front. I think I was like second or third out of the guys who didn't do it. And it literally felt the lap of my life, and I'm sitting going, how is Rogers like 6, 7 tenths quicker than me? Like, what has happened? Like, are we all that bad? Yeah, and then I remember straight away, like our VC just got flooded because we were in all different channels, and we had like, I don't remember how many drivers we had. I think it was like 7 or 8 drivers, and all of a sudden you just hear the Discord join thing, and it's just going off over and over and over again, and everyone's just shouting, going, "What the fuck is going on?" Like, everyone just lost their heads. And then on the broadcast, they were saying, "Oh, they've had a technical problem," because you just saw, I think it was it Charlie Collins? Was it Collins or was it Dane Warren that was just driving down the pit lane? You just hear the RPM screaming, but he's just crawling.
Yeah, and one of them.
And obviously, because they were doing that, their laps came in after everyone else's. So initially, qualifying looked really close and really exciting, and then all of a sudden, bang, 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 and we're just all getting knocked down. And then, of course, in the race, they ended up taking each other out, which was kind of... At the time, I was like, that's karma. Like, for whatever you have found, 100%. That's karma. But...
Now, you got to give them the credit, obviously, because when you find something like that, it's the way it is. But overall, it just... Whenever something like this comes up, it just... I guess it's also one of the reasons why esport has been taking a hit in the past couple of years on iRacing, because people are also just fed up of spending so much time trying to figure out things, than they just rather leave instead of spending more time on actually driving faster. But instead, they have to find exploits and have to find ways that are beyond just driving to actually compete at the top, which is really annoying and hurts the scene itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely levels to it. Like to sort of draw a comparison to real life, like in Formula One, there's the development race, but they're always looking for ways to produce more aero within the rules that they allow. You know, you saw Ferrari with the Macarena wing or whatever the hell, like just playing with random stuff within the rules to try and find an advantage. But I definitely get what you mean. Like if someone finds like a setup thing, then I feel like that's slightly different than what was done with Brake Dragon. I don't know what you think, but like I didn't mind doing Brake Dragon after a while because I figured it out and I ended up being okay at it. But it was just one of those things where testing became a bit of a grind, and it was no longer like driving. As you say, it was like spending 10 hours a week, you know, saying do a brake drag at 35 kph instead of 33, and then the
Yeah.
balance would shift. You know, just from brake dragging at 2 kph difference, the balance would change. If you'd done one or two extra weaves in one section, and then one or two less in another section, you'd have no grip. Yeah, I don't know if you felt it being that inconsistent as well, but like
Uh,
that's how precise it got. Like it was one or
yeah,
two
yeah, yeah.
kph difference, and it could ruin a qualifying run.
Yeah, it was the start to every single race prep being absolutely annoying. It started with the brake dragging, but it continued with many other things afterwards. Where even nowadays, when you practice, it's not just about driving anymore at all. It's like 95% of the time you just spend on how to prep the tires for the lap, and it's so sad because I'm in huge favor of having everything at the same level. That's what I just liked about Rennsport so much, but I guess we get to talk about that afterwards. There's nothing you can do. Everything is fixed. You start the lap just before the last corner or second to last corner, and you go on the qualifying lap. And that's what I miss on iRacing so much. It's whenever you go into preparation, you have to spend 40, 50, 60 hours for a special event to know exactly what you have to do in qualifying, because it's just the most important thing that you're going to have in that race. So yeah, with the brake dragging, I never fully figured it out because I was also really fed up by it, and that was probably the time where I got really upset with iRacing, and I was so happy when I was able to switch to rFactor first with Le Mans Virtual with Team Redline back then, because that was I felt like I got back into normal driving again, whereas on iRacing it was always just about anything but the driving, which is just so sad. And yeah, as I said, brake dragging was just the start of it. I mean, nowadays people are driving without the ABS to warm up the front tires. I mean, I agree with you that when you find something on the setup, that's all right. But when it goes too far and you can manipulate inputs, you can manipulate tires in a certain way on a very small, thin line where you can either have the lap of your life and you're still going to be 2 or 3 tenths off pace, or you have the lap of your life and you're 2 or 3 tenths ahead of the rest of the field. That's just a bit too much in my eyes.
Yeah, I think I had it a few times where I nailed the lap prep in PESC, and the lap was mid at best. You know, I was expecting to be P7, P8, and I would be like third on the grid. And
No.
you know, you'd see it some weeks, like for example in Apex, right? Alejandro and I were very very similar. He was slightly quicker than I was, but I think on the day, sometimes his tire prep was just not where it should have been. But that window was so small to find, and I think something that people would never really understand, and this is kind of why I wanted to do this thing with you and with a bunch of other sort of top esports drivers that have been around and been in PESC and Rennsport and all these different perspectives, is kind of give people a look at just how complex it actually became. You know, like just imagine your whole job, that you're getting paid a salary to perform and get results, right? And your salary for a large part is dictated on how you perform, right? If you're performing well, you can justify going to your manager and saying, I want an extra couple hundred a month, an extra 500 a month, whatever it is. But if you're not getting results, then you know you've got another year on the same money.
Yeah.
And then there's prize money on top of that, and all that is being dictated on, did I hold 5% too much brake during that brake drag? Did I do half a weave extra that for some reason has completely killed the tire, and there was no way in data to see, oh, I overheated the tire, because it wasn't a warming strategy, it was conditioning, right? So it was changing the actual makeup of the tire, like the physics of the tire. It wasn't a, oh, the temp was out the window, so we know we just do a little bit less and it'll be within the window. It was full guesswork. Like you literally had to drive around and try a million different things. Like Red Bull Ring, I remember, like coming out of turn one, you couldn't brake drag there, and this is after the scrutiny came out, and we'll probably touch on scrutiny and your opinions on that, because for me,
Sure.
that probably pissed me off more than the brake dragging stuff, because the scrutiny just made it 10 times worse, because
Yep.
it didn't stop it. All it done was you had to be more selective with where you did it, and it became a lot more of a fine line where we were starting to run calculations on how the scrutiny system actually worked, and is it based on the average speed over a mini sector or what? And I think eventually we gave up and just said, what, scrutiny is just like, it looks at the corner profile and the speed that you normally drive through. That's your expected speed. So to brake drag, you would select the slower speed corners, because the game is not going to be surprised by you going at 35 kph for 5 to 10 seconds. So, and I think that was after round 2, right? For Barcelona, they came out with that fix fairly quickly.
Yeah. It was Barcelona. We still brake drag normal, I think, and then afterwards we had the fix. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course
the fix.
Yeah, the fix. Yeah, the good old band-aid. And then from there on, it grew arms and legs. Like people were finding that the scrutiny didn't work in pit exit and things like that. If you remember that as well, like so people were doing 10, 15 weaves in the pit exit, and then they would select a few slow corners and do it there, because you couldn't do it at high speed. So as I say, Red Bull Ring, T1, we couldn't do it. They had to drive through it normally. Then at the hairpin, the expected speed there is what in a P Cup, like 60 k's, 70 k's, somewhere in that region.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
So we would do 8 weaves, so 4 right, 4 left, and you had to just stare at the speed the whole time, making sure you're doing 35, 35, 35. Then you go down to the next corner. Because you just brake dragged in the previous corner, you couldn't do it there, so then you had to go round again. But then you had 2 high speed corners, so you couldn't really do it there. And it got so like if you had 20 hours prep for a race, 15 hours was spent on outlaps doing brake dragging. And people don't realize that, like, if you got the prep wrong on the day, there's no matter how good a lap it was, you would be starting mid pack to the back, and if you're mid pack in PESC, you're not going to survive. And
yeah. And was that at the time where we had 4 laps in quali still? Do I remember correctly, or was that the year after?
Good question. I remember at Spa, one quali run took 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That was,
so it was
the
4
worst.
laps.
That was the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like on any track, to be honest, if you have to prep your tires for 3 consecutive laps, well, actually 4 laps, because you have the outlap plus 3 flying laps just to condition the tire and to be competitive. I just couldn't be arsed. I was never that into finding more with the brake dragging. I obviously tried, and back then with Team Redline, I had the tools also with the other people trying. But to be honest, I was just like I was continuing to drive and not focusing too much on how to figure out how to perfectly brake drag whatnot, because it was just a time where I was really upset. And I think back then I was still streaming. We still had PDS on the side, so I was not 100% relying on the results that much, luckily, and I was not relying too much on the salary I got from Team Redline. So that was really good, and that allowed me to probably take a step back compared to everyone else in terms of what to find on the tires and the strats and everything. I'm really not looking back to this time too much, because it was really the most annoying part of iRacing World Championship Series in my eyes.
Yeah, and I had a point here for later on, but I think it's a good time to bring it up now. Like, would you say that the brake dragging era was like your darkest time in sim racing? Like, what's probably the roughest period for you mentally where you've maybe considered packing it in? Or
100%. That was the time where I was so far off in the qualifyings after knowing that I did good laps. Like, literally, I did a good lap. I was like, on a normal day, if everything is fixed, it's like a P5 at least, and I ended up in P20, P25 or something at the back of the grid, middle to back of the grid in every single qualifying session. I do remember, what was it? Was it Magny Core? I think I did an insane lap. I was P9 or something, or P10 and 3/10 off. It was an insane lap. I still have it in front of my eyes. This lap that I did, it was just perfect. And then another couple of races, there was Red Bull Ring as well, where I did an insane lap and was still 3/10 off or so. It was just so frustrating because I knew I didn't spend the time, and I knew that I was missing something on how to prep the tires and everything. But still, when you see those results, then you really don't even think too much about that everybody else has a better warming strategy for the tires. You just think about, okay, I'm shit. I'm starting to become slower than I used to be. And yeah, that's where mental health started to become a bit worse. Obviously, you start thinking about things, then you see teammates being better than you when you drove against them for the past 2, 3, 4 years, and you've always been better in most of the things that you've raced in. And yeah, the darkest time for sure. That's why when we competed on Rennsport after, and I won the first round on LAN there, I was just so relieved. Started crying because I was like, oh my god, such a relief, because after all this shit years on iRacing, it was just a pleasure that when everything is fixed again, you are still able to compete at the top.
I remember that, yeah. I remember seeing you like tearing up, and I was like, fucking hell, this guy cares. Like, this guy gives a shit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's something I've always admired about you. Like, you know, people like yourself and Rogers and Seb and guys like that who started around the same time as me. Yous are always guys who I've looked up to, admired, respected, but also targeted. Like, I don't know if you do this as well, but for me, it was like I'd always try and study body language to see how someone reacted to a certain action. So when we were doing Porsche GB in 22, one of the large things that I focused on was just the mental side, was, you know, being able to perform under pressure, staying calm. And it's interesting you spoke about the mental health. We'll get onto that in a second. Like, I really studied Seb hard in PESC to see his body language and see how he reacted, so I knew how I could get him to tick. Because in GB it was very much like a 1v1. Like, there was no, it's not like in PESC where you've got like 5 to 8 guys that can get in the middle of the battle. For me and Seb, it was a 1v1. I knew he had the pace over me. That was always a given. But it was trying to figure out ways to annoy him. And in the first round, I think it was at Donington, I figured that giving him a little nudge mid-corner just to unsettle his rear really wound him up. So I just kept doing it to the point where he snapped and started spam DMing me and things like that. Like, you know, stop all this shit, you're better than that. And that's when I knew I'd got him to tick. But yeah, like, something that I'd always admired about you was that you were just obsessed with winning. Like, you're the kind of guy, I imagine, that if you don't win, maybe you don't lose sleep over it, but like, you don't let go of that easily, you know. And I feel like I'm very much the same in that regard. But like, you're at a level that I've always admired, where winning is the absolute, like, there's no excuse for not winning, kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. I think all of us guys that compete at the top and over many years have kind of the same mindset, right? There's either winning or there's losing, like a P2, unless it's like super highly competitive and you have a long season to go. But generally speaking, you want to get that win done. And I'm just so competitive. I don't think I could live without having something competitive in my life. If it's not SimRacing, then it would probably be something else. Even when I play board games, I scream at my girlfriend when I lose against her, or with friends or something. It's always the same. So I want to win no matter what I do, which is a blessing on one side, because this gives you the drive to continue driving or doing anything in life when you actually don't really want to anymore. But on the other hand side, obviously, it also hurts you because, yeah, talking about mental health there, you need to really take care of that. Otherwise, it's going to go down to shambles. And the same with the physical stuff of it. There was a time where I was 15 kilos more than I am now, just because I was not getting out of my rig trying to compete at the highest level. And then at a certain moment, there just comes the break point where you're like, no, it has to stop. And then you take a break. But these breaks are also necessary that afterwards you can come back with just more self-confidence, a better feeling with your body, a better feeling with your mental health, a better feeling about anything you do. So yeah, there's a downside to it as well. But honestly, I'm totally happy that it is the way it is, because it also made me learn so much about myself and about all the things surrounding it, that it's not just about, just like you said, not just about the driving. When you miss a half a tenth or something on someone else, then maybe you can find a different way of beating him in the long run, right? And that's also what's cool about it, and that's in my eyes what sport in general is, and especially esports. When you look at, I don't know, Counter-Strike matches, for example, they win a round or they make a cool play and they start screaming so that the other one hears it, right? So these kind of things, they are important, and only when you do that you start to have, yeah, a small advantage over everyone else who's not doing it, I guess.
Yeah, and I completely agree with what you say with, the winning being the goal, being a blessing and a curse. Because the blessing is that, you're so driven, like, no matter the result, you are driven to keep going. Like, if you didn't win, the next day you're on trying to find performance, right? And that for me was really enjoyable, was like when I was missing a little bit of pace to where I wanted to get. I really enjoyed the analysis side, so like loading the replay up from the race the day before, and analysing where it went wrong, so that I know, rather than guessing and going, oh, I was half a tenth off pole, they must have just had a better tyre strat. Rather than sitting assuming that, I'd be like, no, fuck it, let's go and actually see exactly what the difference was. Did he just perform better on the day? Did he have a slightly different brake drag strat? If he did, let's go and try it, see if I can find some performance, and that was great. But the curse is that, like, you go so far down that rabbit hole, and if you hit a tough patch, rather than being able to bounce back out of it, sometimes you end up working harder and harder and harder, but you're not working any smarter.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, the mental health goes completely down the drain, because you just assume, I work harder, I'm gonna win, it will happen for me. But that's just not the reality. You have to be diligent in what you do. You have to be intelligent with what you do. You have to be efficient with your time. You can't do 40 hours prep for every single event, because sometimes there's time constraints, there's other commitments with family or coaching, data packs, streaming, whatever. And yeah, as I say, like, when you're not winning, that mental part kind of breaks down quite a bit. And I'm not afraid to admit it. Like, I've never needed like coaching or mental support over the last 9 years, but with how the last 6 months have gone for me, it's definitely been the breaking point for me mentally. Like, I've been through a really rough patch. I'm not going to get into details because I don't think people really will really care, but I just want to sort of emphasize the fact that, like, there is no shame in getting help or admitting that you're struggling with that kind of stuff, because Rennsport was great for me at points. I really enjoyed my time on Rennsport. It was great. When I got into VP and I got paired up with Dara, I thought, this is it. Like, this is exactly what I've been fighting for. Like, me and him together, we can finally be in a position to fight for a championship. And we went out to EWC last year, and I felt great in the rig. I felt confident when I was there, and it just wasn't ticking. And even the whole online season was pretty much the same. I was matching Dara in practice. Our PBs were like at most a tenth difference, but on average it was around half a tenth. But then on the day, he's out qualifying me by like three tenths. I remember at Jeddah, he qualified me up with 4 tenths at one point, and I'm sitting just going, man, I've fallen off big time. And that all last year, that really weighed on me. And I think after EWC, when we finished second, I came back, and I don't know why I did this, but I was so hard on myself, and I blamed myself for us not winning that championship. As stupid as that sounds, because Dara put in probably one of the best land performances of all time, like in Rennsport. Like, what he did on that finals day was just unbelievable. And for me, I couldn't even muster up a podium. And me and him were getting paid the same at VP, so like the expectation was the same. For the other two guys, they were getting paid a little bit less, so that for them, they were rookies. It was just get yourself up to speed, try and learn what you can. And I blamed myself for months after that for not winning the championship. And then I thought, right, I'll come back to iRacing, we'll get back in our comfort spot after Rennsport went down. Then got released by VP, and a bunch of stuff happened in my personal life and things. And since getting back onto iRacing, I've not quite gotten back to where I feel like I should be. I keep comparing myself to the 22 version of me, where I was third in PESC and I was winning BMW Sim Cup races. We were up at the front in special events. We won IMSA. And since coming back, I'm just missing that little edge. So I've ended up getting like a mental coach to kind of help me work through all this stuff, because I'm at a point now where you and I are both on the older generation, right, in terms of the pro guys, and we're not even that old. I don't know, I can't remember exactly how old you are. You're 30, 31?
32.
32, right, okay, so you're 32, I'm 28, so we're on the older end of the scale. But with sim racing, there's no real limitation with age, right? So it's all just a mental game. And for me, I think I've got a decade of experience. Like, I'm not driving any slower than I was back then, it's just things aren't coming together, and mentally I'm overloaded. So I've had to reach out for that support and be like, no, I'm still in my prime. Like, there's still many years left, but I just need to unload some stuff mentally and get realigned, and then it can go again.
Yeah, I second everything you just said now. There's absolutely no shame in getting some help. I also never seeked for help or reached out for help for the mental side, but I did a lot myself. I'm just someone I don't like to rely on other people, and at the same time, I'm someone who likes to learn new things. So I go out on the internet, I talk to other people who have probably the same issues, and I try to find a solution for myself, rather than like going to someone and being like, oh yeah, I have this, please help me, because I just want to see it myself first. The good thing though is that the moment I joined Mouse, Mouse has a dedicated mental coach and sports coach. So I had a lot of sessions with him, and it helped me a lot in finding, not helping myself directly, but finding ways to improve my mental health, and finding ways to calm down before races, and finding ways on how to prep better and, be in better shape. I still use these methods to date. So that is what really helped me. But yeah, there will always be moments, no matter what you do, whether it's us in sim racing or other people in sim racing, other people in different sports, where you feel like you're on top of your game, you do everything right, and then maybe 2 months or 3 months after, it's all back down, and you're, like you say, 3/10 off or 4/10 off, just because it's just about that one performance. What helped me a lot to overcome this is just to have a good team around you, where you don't feel like you have to be at the top of your game every single time you go into a competition, but rather it's like, if you mess up, it's fine. Obviously, don't mess up twice, don't mess up 3 times, but if you mess up once, like in a day or a whole competition, it's okay. There are going to be more competitions to come. And that's what I really liked about Mouse for the past 3 years now, 4 years actually. It's almost that no matter what, they were always happy. They were always coming towards you. They were like, what went wrong? How can we improve this? I always had good people around me, where even myself, I was never really upset when a teammate of mine was doing something stupid. Like, I remember, for example, Yuri in, what was it? Was it 2024 at the EWC, or 2020? Was it last year? No, I don't remember. Something on Daytona, I think, where he just crashed into other people and lost a lot of points. And that was basically, effectively, it was like 20K of prize money in total. But I was like, you know what? It happened. You had an outburst, and an outburst. It happens. And that's how, when you treat yourself in a team like this, then you perform better afterwards. I don't think with Mouse we ever had the best overall team, but still we had very good results because we were just like, no matter what happens, we're going to be there as a team, and we're going to compete. And that's, I think, how we were able to compete with other teams who were a lot better than us at the time. And that's also something that helps, to have just always a team around you that is supporting and not caring too much about the bad results, but caring a lot more about the good results, whether it be just the top 5 or top 3 that you got in one race. But yeah, as you say, never beat yourself down. There's going to be good times and bad times. You just have to come out of the gulag again once you're in one of those bad timings. but you know you have the talent. I know I have the talent. When everything is right, we get there. And I feel the same about iRacing as you now. Since I got back, when did I get back? Maybe in March or something. I started to drive official races again because I was just like, nah, that I need to get back. iRacing is just it's just at the forefront. And I'm still missing something. There are some weeks where I am at the top of the top, and I can compete and I can get on pole almost every single race. But then there are weeks like Le Mans this week, for example, where I'm like, yeah, I'm just missing a bit. Or the week before, what was it, Road America? I know what I'm missing. I'm not driving smooth enough yet, and as long as you know what you have to do afterwards to get there again, you're gonna get there. It's just gonna take a bit of time, yeah.
It's interesting you say that because I often use like data packs as a bit of a reference for my own performance. It's like my best data point, especially when there's not like a special event on or anything like that. And like Le Mans for the data packs, I was like rapid. I was the quickest on VRS, I think, with what car was it? The Aston. And the Aston's not the quickest car, so I knew I was lapping well and the setups were in a good window. Then I came to Indianapolis and I messaged Jamie Fluke and I was like, what time have you done in the Porsche? Because he does the VRS Porsche pack, I do the ARA one. And he was like, I've done this time. And I was like 2/10 off. And I'm like, so how come I was quicker at Le Mans on no downforce? And I hate GT3s on low downforce. I think Moritz shares the same opinion. Like GT3s and iRacing on low downforce are horrendous to drive. But for some reason I'm good on them. And then we've come to a high downforce track at Indy Road. And all of a sudden I'm slow. But in the other cars I seem okay. So like the performance is so hit and miss. And it was the same when we were testing for Spa 24. Within the team, out of all 6 of us that were practicing, we were all within half a tenth. But I was at the bottom end of that. Now half a tenth on the grand scheme of things is nothing, right? But the mental toll that can take, especially if everyone else is just ahead of you, even if it's only a couple hundredths, it plays that toll because in your head you're like, right, I'm 6th fat, I'm the slowest in the team. But like the mental toll that will take is like, I'm the slowest in the team. I'm only half a tenth off, but I'm the slowest in the team. So you've always got that kind of floating around, and I think for me, I'm trying to gain an understanding of how to actually drive these cars because it seems to vary so much. Like everyone says with iRacing, smooth is fast. I've almost gone too far the other way. At the end of our double stints, I was like 8% better on tires than the rest of the team. But I was really quick at the last 5 to 10 laps of the double, but for the rest of the stint, I was like a tenth, 2/10 off. And when I tried to push harder, the tire just produced no grip. I just overheated the tire. So I'm really stuck in that limbo period. I think we're probably in the same boat where it's just trying to understand what makes the car tick. And if you're on high downforce or low downforce, and then if it's a high speed corner or a low speed corner, depending on the braking zone, there's different styles that need to be adopted. And with how precise iRacing's tire model is at the top level, there's no middle ground. The tire's either switched on or it's not, and it's very similar to brake dragging.
Yeah, it is. It is very similar to brake dragging, actually. That's what I just was about to say. It's when you have a corner combination. I'm trying to think of something, but for example, Interlagos, when you just get a bit more rotation into one corner, let's say in the infield, you get a bit more rotation into the left-hander, that slow left-hander in the infield, in the second sector. Your rear tire warms up a little bit more, and that will probably give you a bit more rotation for the next left-hander that is coming up before the last corner, right? So I think it's also about a combination of a couple of corners where when you drive the first corner of that combination already, either you underdrive it or you overdrive it, that's just going to completely mess up the next sector that you have in front of you. And I think it's also about figuring out these kind of things where you have to, as you say, adopt your driving style to match those different sequences of corners to have the perfect grip in each of those corners and ultimately on the whole lap. And that is what is so hard to comprehend, and it's something that just takes a lot of time. I think, for example, now at Le Mans, it's all right, but the next time I get to Le Mans, I will know a couple of more things that I learned from this week already. And just like that, you also have to understand that everybody else that you're competing against on iRacing has been on iRacing for the past couple of years. They didn't really make the switch too much like we did back to Rennsport, back to iRacing, So all of these people that are now at the forefront at iRacing, they are just driving this. And I remember from back in the day, I didn't come to iRacing and was dominating. It took me months and probably even years to get to the level I was at probably in 2018. I mean, it started on iRacing in 2015, was shit in the Pro Series in 2016, 2017, and then only in 2018 it clicked. So it's also about, being persistent in just being fine with being slow. Obviously, you have to, get your head down, and don't let yourself get dragged down by thinking I'm the slowest in the team. It's more about you're already close. It's just you're not there for long enough to really understand what's happening nowadays compared to probably 5 years ago or something. And then at a certain moment, it just will make click, and you don't even understand why. But the time is just going to be there at the end of the day, and that's the moment that you just have to look forward to, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's another reason why I reached out to get like a mental coach, is because I was looking at the data, but from Watkins 6 to Spa 24 to data packs and official races and whatever, I can compare my data to my teammates and see what they're doing and how they're doing it. But the problem is like Ricardo Rico has a completely different style to me, and then Johan's got a completely different style to me. And Johan are a lot closer than we are to Ricardo. He's got a completely different style, but he makes it work for him. So I can see what he's doing, but when I try to adopt it, it doesn't work. So then I kind of go back and I'm like, right, okay, so this is my strength, this is my weakness. I need to play into my strength as much as I can to extract the performance, and then I'll have like a couple of weeks where I feel like I'm getting on top of it and I'm seeing improvements, and then we'll go to a track for data packs. I'll do my lap and I'll go, yeah, that was really good, and I'll see that I'm like 2/10 off, and I'm like, every time I feel like I'm taking a step forward, I get knocked back down again. And when it was coming to like Spa 24, I was like, yeah, okay, this is great. Like I've just found 2/10 a lap, and then someone else would post an average or like some lap times that they've done, and they've found 0.2 again. So all of a sudden I'm back to square one again. The net positive is I've gotten quicker, but I've not closed the gap to the front guy. And you never want to rock up to an event being the slowest and feeling like you're holding the team back from its potential. And obviously you never want to get driving time taken off you in a special event, because that can happen if you're not fast enough on the day. Plans have to change. If you're going to sacrifice a win or a podium, you're going to get thrown out the car. And yeah, it's that constant feeling like you're taking a step forward and then get knocked back. It's like it's hard to take, but definitely like with what you're saying, like with these long sequence of corners with the tire model, it's like I feel like with GT3 and the new P Cup as well is like this. It comes from the ABS, right? It's so hard to understand, because it's not a case of avoiding the ABS entirely, because if you do, then you're just not pushing hard enough and you're slow. But you use a little bit too much, and, and you're slow. So there's like a Goldilocks zone, and there's no real way to find where that is, because if you look at the brake traces and you see that little yellow line come up where the ABS is engaging, it only tells you that the ABS is engaged, but it doesn't tell you actually what intensity it's kicking in, because if you look at the telemetry in Motec, you've got like an ABS cut percentage that you can see. So when that line comes on, it could be a 5% cut or it could be a 15% cut, and there's no way of knowing. And those small things for us at the top level make all the difference, because it could be 5 degrees of surface temperature that you can't, there's no way of knowing until you turn in for the corner and you go, oh shit, okay, I've got no grip now, and you've got another 3-4 corners coming up with no chance to cool them. And it's like that in qualifying, it's like that in race. It takes months to build that muscle memory. I mean, for me to get to the level I got to by 22, that was like 4 years in the making. If you remember me in 2019 in PESC, I was like a mid-pack guy at best. Then 2020, I got a good understanding, jumped up to 5th, then 4th and 3rd, and I made gradual progression every year. Then I went to Rennsport, had to completely rip up the rule book, start from scratch, learn a whole new driving style. And now I've come back to iRacing. I'm trying to lean back into the 22 muscle memory that's still kind of in there, but so much has changed. And I think you're very much the same as me. Like when we were doing Rennsport, we did Rennsport. We didn't come back to iRacing really. Like guys like Johan, he was still coming back and doing PESC and then going back to Rennsport and jumping between the two.
Yeah.
But for me, my way is that if I'm going to do something, it's 100%, like it's full commitment. And those 3 years out, still fundamentally drive kind of the same, but those small differences, they take months to master and properly understand, and it's such a long process. But hey ho, hopefully by Christmas I'll get there. But who really knows with the star model?
Yeah, it's I mean, we've talked about this for since forever, basically since the tire model came out, right? In what, 2019? No, 2020 it was. That it's just too sensitive. We're still hoping that iRacing is going to fix it at some point. I guess times would be closer then even between people, but you would see different people at the top because it's much more. If the tire model would be a bit more forgiving and you could do more things, that would probably give you a bigger slip angle that you could use. So you would probably see different people being at the front, but times would be probably even closer than they are already now. I mean, nowadays, even when you look at the special event, the gaps I see are just insane. You know, like from P1 to P10, what was it in Spa 24? Was a couple of tenths, right? And when you think about that, back in the day, you didn't have these big gaps, although the amount of drivers was way less. You know, the competition was not as strong as it now is nowadays. And yet, when you look at the times of qualifying now, the gaps are insane just because the small nuances that you find or that you do differently with the tire just create such a big gap in lap time. And it would be cool to see iRacing working on a tire model to make it less sensitive as it is now. But I've been saying that forever, so yeah, just a hoping process at this point.
I think iRacing's in a bit of a tough spot where they don't want to overdo it, right? And then we end up with what we had in Rennsport, where it was too far that way. There's definitely a middle ground to strike, but I think iRacing are very scared of going more in that direction because they don't want to see massive slip angles, because the whole selling point of iRacing, right, is it looks the best on a broadcast.
100%.
You know, they've got the replay patching, so the cars always look smooth and everything like that. It looks great. But yeah, as I say, it's such a fine line between having too much, the tire offering too much grip and not offering enough sort of, I don't know what the word is, like leniency, I guess, with like how the ABS interacts with things and the track temperature and such. But just to move on to the last couple points, I want to go back to the exploit topic, because I think on track, you know, you and I are obviously rivals, right? But I think there's always been an element of respect, and off track we've always been friendly with the Rennsport lands and things like that. But I think it was 2020 when that almost stopped, where I was like, I hate Redline when you were there, because of we were just to give the viewers a bit of background, right? We were doing a test race at Montreal for a PESC round, and we had an engineer who sat and spectate, and out of nowhere he joins the VC and says, everyone stop driving right now and leave the session, Redline are here. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how have they got in? It was password protected, everything, results were restricted. You yourself weren't directly involved. I'll give you that. It was your teammates that had joined the session, and I think they got banned for the rest of the year, right? It was there was 3 of them.
It was pretty big, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a big controversy. And that kind of sparked some beef. Like we weren't happy about that. But from your side, like from what you know, from what they did, like there's always been this thing, right, in iRacing where results are never truly restricted. There's always a way to spectate other people and things like that. So yeah, I guess from your side, how did that go?
Yeah, I don't remember the full details. I think it was Alex and Chris. Who was the third one who joined, or was it just the 2 of them? Alex Tiebe and Chris Damby, I think, joined right on your session.
Was Patrick there as well? There was a third.
I don't think so.
There was a
was
third.
It Patrick?
There was a third one. There was 3 involved. I can't remember the third one.
Yeah, I do remember there was 3. I only know of Alex and Chris. And the way it worked was pretty simple. I don't exactly know how we figured it out, but we were checking our friends list, and back then on the iRacing website, it was not the UI, it was the iRacing website. When you had your friends list, next to the person, there was a little drive icon, right? The little wheel that was showing up when you were able to join the session. And sometimes you would click that, and it would say, password protected, you can't join, whatever, just get out of here. And when you tried long enough, like sometimes 5 or 10 times, suddenly it worked, and you were just connecting to the session. Literally, it was that simple. There was just something messed up on the iRacing website that allowed you to join. So there was nothing like crazy that the people did. I was like, I'm not gonna join. If you want to, feel free to do it. I don't exactly know what we talked about in voice, but we were like, I mean, if you want to join, do it. I was like, I'm not going to do it. And but obviously they joined and saw the lap times, and it worked for both of them, or the three of them. But it was not consistent. It was not like you were just pressing the button and it worked. It was like one time it worked, the other time it didn't work. But I'm so bad with my memory. Like I don't even remember all the races we did. It's I don't exactly know why that worked and how long it worked after. But I think afterwards, after you guys figured that out, that people from our team joined, you spoke to iRacing pretty quickly, and they fixed at least this issue, because nowadays you can't join through the friends list anymore when the session is restricted or password protected. But back then it was as simple as that. There was no going into like hacking the server or getting access through something that is not related to iRacing itself. It was simply pressing a button and joining. Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously we contacted them like within the hour. We were like, look, this is happening. iRacing launched an investigation. It turned out it had been happening for like the last 2 rounds as well. I think it was Silverstone, then there was another track, then we went to Montreal. And the first time that they saw it on iRacing systems was in Silverstone. So obviously we then investigated to figure out how you guys were doing it. And within about 3 or 4 hours, we had found a way to do it. But from speaking to you, what we found was totally different and way more complicated than what you done. So I took some notes. I asked an old friend from Apex how we managed to do it, and basically what we done was we took the URL. So when you clicked to join a hosted server on the website, it would generate the URL. If you copied that URL and then just removed the password field from it, when you pasted it, iRacing wouldn't prompt you for a password, and you could just join.
It's even ridiculous that this is even possible. But I'm 100% positive that we didn't do that back then, because nobody in the team would have like even tried something like that. So yeah, maybe because when you spammed the button, sometimes that link just got generated falsely, like without the password requirement. That's the only way I could think of that why this actually worked for us without doing it. But yeah, it's iRacing at its best. So.
I mean, I remember back in the day when a hosted server finished, and you clicked on the URL, it would say results are restricted to participants only or whatever. If you copied that URL and then removed a couple elements from it, or I think it was either that or it was inspect element that you could do, you could remove certain information, and then all the lap times would just show up, and you could see everything. So
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, that I think this was like again 2020. Around 21, this is a COVID era, so obviously we reported it to iRacing and whatever, and I think there's a bunch of other teams doing it, and nowadays there's now another way of doing it, which I can't say because it's still active and ongoing. It's a lot more complicated and it's not as reliable as back then, because now when you have a session with practice, quality and race, it influences how the results are generated. So depending on what session, if there's like 10 people in there, if they all left at the end of qualifying, then, or so if they all done the race then left at the end and then reset the session back to the start of the race using AI, then no lap times will be shown, kind of thing. It's all that kind of stuff. Like there's still stuff ongoing now at the top level. It's not as easy as it was back in the day. There was definitely a lot of gaps in security over the last 5 or 6 years, and as you say, it definitely at its peak, like 20 to 22, in that kind of region for me, that's when it became less about the driving and more about, spying, higher exploits, qualifying scrutiny, grass dipping, which I haven't spoke about. We've not really got time to go into grass dipping, but yeah, like there's been so many things over the years that have gone on that, I love it because it's competition, right? And everyone's trying to one up each other and whatever else. But I definitely agree that when it becomes less about the driving, the enjoyment drops just a little bit, and that's where Rennsport was really good, because it was just driving like the car reset at the line. There was no tire cheese, no brake warming stuff. What there was at the start, but they patched that fairly quick. And it was just driver talent and a bit of bop. But I mean, overall, the bop in Rennsport, I don't know what you think, but I think it was pretty decent for the most part compared to the special events you see now in iRacing. The bop is way better.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the only proper way to do Bob, right? Get everyone else that is not driving your car into this car and get the best out of it. That's probably the best Bob system that you can have. So yeah, I think maybe at the start it wasn't great, but after the first couple of seasons, it got pretty much perfect. It can't get much better than it was in Rennsport. Yeah, I agree.
So just to finish us off, then we got a couple questions from community members. So the first one was, what is the fastest way to improve outside of just driving more?
Fastest way to improve is, I usually say the term be different. So when you're driving, you tend to always do the same things, right? When you, let's say you go into turn one, no matter what track it is, and you always do the same. You brake at the same point, you turn at the same point, you go on the gas at the same point, in theory. So try to be different. Try to maybe for that turn one, steer a bit more or steer a bit less. Every single lap that you do, try to do something different on the lap that you're doing to see what happens on the delta bar, to see what happens with the tires, or to see what happens with your feeling with the steering wheel. Because only when you change things, your lap time can change. If you just continue driving like you always do every single lap, there's no way you can improve because everything will always stay the same. And you maybe improve because you're doing less mistakes after some time, but there's no way you're going to find the limit better. So the only way to really improve is, yes, to put the practice in, but put meaningful practice in, aka do something different. Steer more, steer less, brake more, brake less. Go under your throttle earlier, go later, try to take a combination different, go more on the curb, go less on the curb, anything but doing the same thing all over for 40 hours a week.
It's funny you say that because that's exactly what I say to any coaching clients I have. Like, I'll analyze the lap for them, show them where the sort of low hanging fruit is, where this is going to be the easiest thing to fix right now, and it'll be lines. So like Les Comet Spa, right? You'll know yourself through the left hander you can cut way more than you might actually initially think through there, and the more you cut, the more the car turns. And I'll say to someone, like, you need to cut a little bit more through there. You can take more. You want the right side tires as close to the top of the curb as possible, and you'll feel the grip. And they turn in at the same point as they've done before, and they miss it, and then they miss it again, and they miss it again. And eventually I'll go, right, for this left-hander, I want you just to turn in and try and get a slowdown. And then magically, they'll hit the line first time. And I'm like, there you go. You were doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You've got to change and keep your mind open and go, you know what, in this corner, I'm just going to drive in and just get an off-track, just so I know where the off-track is. On the exit, is it tires on the white line? Is it 2 tires on the curb? Can I get away with having one off just a little bit? All that kind of stuff is just always challenge your own thinking, challenge your driving, think outside the box. Absolutely.
Yeah, the one thing that people just never do in all of the coaching sessions I did, I mean, I do less now, but back in the day I did so many. The one thing they never do is crash out. That's like, I barely see anyone crash out. For example, like I had a session on Road America, and usually for me, when I go into turn one and I try to push, I go wide every second lap trying to just find the limit. And when I have a coaching session, they just drive through turn one as if it's not even a hard corner at all, and they never crash out, they never get a slowdown penalty. And I feel like that's the first way to improve, is just to crash out. It's sim racing after all. You're not going to have to pay for the repairs of the car. Crash out, get slowdown penalties, get off tracks, because that's the only way you're going to find the actual limit of the grip.
It's funny, I say that to people as well. I'll be like, after the session's done and you're off on your own, I want you to go and crash more. I was like, so many people will be amazed at how much you and I crash, and everyone at the top level, like, we're crashing
50% of the laps at least.
Yeah, exactly. It's all we do is crash, get slowdowns, spin, you name it. Like, trying to find the limit of our driving, the track limits, the limit of the setup. Like, how hard can I push this corner? And like, Poo on at Spa, I lost count how many times I spun there in Spa 24 prep, because I'm always just trying to carry an extra 1 or 2 kph and find the limit. So yeah, absolutely. As Max says, if you guys want to improve and, not have to just put more hours in, just be diligent and just challenge your own thinking. Like, just, do different things, because if you do the same thing over and over again, the result will be the same. Last one I had was, it's actually quite an interesting one. What's your opinion on a fair coaching price? Now, bearing it bearing in mind that there's some guys in real life who are paying £300 to £500 an hour for coaching, and for us, for any professional athlete that does coaching, they're going to charge a hell of a lot. You're not just paying for the advice, you're paying for their experience, you're paying for their knowledge and things like that. But obviously with sim racing, you can't do that because it's just normal people that not real life racing drivers where you can ask for 500 an hour and get it. So where do you think the sort of fair price sort of lands?
It's very difficult to say, because for every coach, whether it's you, me, or anyone else, you can name them, we have a different, let's say, a different approach to how much worth we put ourselves, we would put ourselves for like an hour of coaching, because as well, like 1 hour of coaching is not 1 hour of work. It's literally driving before, texting before, texting after. So effectively an hour of coaching is more like an hour and a half, an hour of 45 minutes, maybe even 2 hours, depending on the track or depending on how much you text before and after. And I made the calculation for myself once, and I own my own business. Not sure about you, if you have the same. Probably you do, and then you have to pay taxes on top of it, right? So it's very hard to say. I think it's very individual. But anything in the range from, I would say, 100 to 150 euros for me is a fair coaching price per hour. Anything less, I don't think it's worth it anymore for the coach to actually spend the extra time. And it would be probably better to spend the time on something else.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, in an ideal world, I mean, for me, for example, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm £60 an hour, so I don't know what that is in euros, like 70 to 75,
yeah,
somewhere in that kind of region. So, if you look at like a lot of the top guys who are doing coaching, it's sort of in and around that region, I think, because for how sim racing has changed, we don't rely on salaries anymore like we used to. There's a lot more different ways, or we have to come up with different ways of earning, through content, coaching, data packs. That's what most guys are doing. Definitely the data packs. That's what 99% of pro guys are having to do now, just to sort of pay the bills, because the salaries just aren't there. Teams are dropping out left, right, and center. There's no ROI, and these companies are getting fed up losing. So there's a lot of different ways to make money, and I think you've got to. If I could charge £100 an hour, I would, right? Because ultimately that's kind of where I view myself. Like, I haven't achieved as much as you have, but we both have a decade of experience. We've both been at the top level consistently throughout that period. It's not as if we've gone away and come back, and we've both been, I feel, consistent over the last decade. But you got to realize your clientele, right? And if coaching is a large part of your income, like it is for me, if I price it at £100 an hour, there's not going to be as many clients who are willing to pay that, especially if they don't know really who I am, how I coach, my background. If they don't know I've got a decade of experience or whatever, then they're not. It's a lot of money to put down on something that you're not certain about, right? So,
yeah,
it's a really tricky balance to strike, I think, from our perspective on where you price yourself, because you want to be competitive with the other guys at your level, but you also don't want to underprice yourself, and you're knocking your pan in every day for.
Yeah, the real price you ask is different from the fair price, and that was the question, right? So for me, a fair price has to be way higher than what you're offering. As you said, you just do it because otherwise you wouldn't have the clients. But people also need to understand that, yeah, first of all, you have to pay your bills. And second of all, you have so much experience behind it. It's ridiculous. Like in any other type of sport, think about tennis, for example. The people we would probably be top 100 on the tennis ranking, right? And imagine how much money people would spend in real life in tennis to get coaching from, I don't know, let's say Andy Murray, right? To not have Federer or Nadal there. But that's kind of the people that we are in terms of sim racing. Obviously, it's a far fetch because there are way more people playing tennis, and it's completely different. But you get the comparison, right? So when you talk about a fair price, I think maybe I was even a bit low on the 100 euros. It should be probably a lot higher. But to make it a fair price, I think, yeah, the range between 100 to 150 euros, or let's say 80 to 120 pounds is that's a fair price for me.
Yeah, I mean, you could always get to the level that Swelly was at, where you can ask for the amount that he's asking for, and people still pay it, right? Like, he's built a whole business around coaching, and I guess credit to him for what he's achieved.
100%.
So, I mean, that's the goal, right? There's always these people at the top of whatever you want to do, be it driving, coaching, whatever, and that's kind of your target content as well. But yeah, I think that will do us for today. If you want to plug yourself, then yeah, feel free. Let us know what you're doing for the rest of the year, and kind of what we can expect to see from you between now and Christmas.
Yeah, there's not going to be much. There's going to be DTM Esports final next week, basically. I have that, and then there's going to be another Rennsport season in the lovely hypercars that we are driving. You can be happy that you're not driving this, because the tire model is way worse than it has ever been on the GT3s. So yeah, one more season of that, with the final at the Sim Expo, which is, I think, starting October, right? Somewhere around there. Then I'm going to be at SimRacing Expo, and then it's time to talk about 2027. I don't exactly know where I'm going to be headed. Don't know what Mouse's plans are going to be. So everything is still a bit blurry for me. But I'm working on something else. I can't talk about the details of it, but I'm working on something else to bring a cool product on the market for sim racers in general that is actually physical and not just setup related or coaching related, actually physical product. So that's something you might want to look out for. Otherwise, we will see what the future holds. I hope I can stay in sim racing and make this a living. I would love to, because I've been doing it for almost 10 years now, and it's still fun. And I enjoy doing it. And I guess it's the same for you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's at this point, it's all I know. It's what I want to do. I don't want to go back to living a normal life and having a normal job. This is what we want to continue doing. But yeah, it's not as easy as it once was. That's for sure. It's as time's gone on, it's actually gotten harder rather than easier, which is a crazy thing. But yeah, I don't want to take up any more of your time. We'll let you go, and we'll put an end to this first episode. But yeah, I just want to say huge thanks for coming on and giving us your time and your expertise, and yeah, wish you the best of luck with your new project. I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was good to talk to you, and all the best. And yes, we speak soon.
Cheers.